for inviting me over here to do the book launch in Swansea. Deb, my very good friend Deb, who sits in the front here, said to me about 8 months ago, she rang up, she said, "Ray, what are we going to do about the miners' strike?" Well, I said, "We're definitely going to do something, but I don't know what it's going to be." And then a colleague of mine, who was the secretary of the miners' support group, said, "Ray, I want you to write this bloody book about the miners' strike," he said, Ray. He said, "You're an ex-miner," he said, "you played a vital part in the support group." He said, he said, "You'd been arrested 2 times, you've been jailed twice during the miners' strike." He said, "I said, you're a lecturer, Tim." I said, "You write the flipping book, not me." I said, "I only went to remedial class when I was in school. I don't know." I said, "I'm a good campaigner." I said, "And I still got a fire burning in my belly." I said, "But writing books is not that's not for me." But he kept on, and then he got other people, then he got our Francis to ring me up, and in the end, I started writing the book. And then, lo and behold, my colleague Deb in front, she rang, she said she's going to put the book together. That was her idea. And so the result is it's going to be 2 books up here. One is called, the one Deb written, and it's about the take on many of those people who was involved in the strike. And mine, and she's got a piece about me, a contribution from me in her book as well. And it's called "How Black Was Our Valleys." And my book is about my own personal experience. And if I can just give you a little bit of background about myself. I was one of 9 in the 30s, coming up in the 30s. Dad unemployed, victimised out in the colliery. Very often sent away to work. Very often not much to eat. Very often no shoes or feet for most of the family. And then came the war. They wanted coal. Dad was employed, etc. But my mother, who had to keep body and soul together during those years, the strain was on her. And then one day, she put a load of coal in from next door because the miners, they weren't expecting for the miners to put a load of coal in after they'd been working in the ground all day. It was always the wives who put the loads of coal in. And so my mother helped her put a load of coal in for the woman down the street. Then she said to me, "Son, go up and tell the midwife that Nurse Gittins, I'll be ready for 8 o'clock. She was pregnant. Up I went, got Nurse Gittins. Baby was born, and they said, "It's all right, Ray." I said, "Is our Mum all right?" "Mum is all right." "Are you sure?" "Yes, Mum is all right." "Can I come up and see her?" "No, you can't come up and see her, she's tired." And then the next morning, I got up, I went to bed, I felt all right, Mum's going to be all right. When I got up the next morning, there was a commotion outside, and I rushed downstairs, and it was
Sorry, Ray, I'm having a job to hearing you. You got up...
Okay, then I'll try and speak up a
yes,
little
please.
bit. And so I got up in the morning, that morning, and there was this ambulance. And then my brothers and sisters was crying, and then my mother was brought down in a stretcher, and I went over to her, and she said, "It's all right. It's all right," she said. But I didn't have a chance, so she went away, and I said to my brothers and sisters, I said, "It's going to be all right, because Mum said it's going to be all right, and if she said it's all right, it's going to be all right." But nevertheless, she died that day. And when I came home from selling the newspapers, my cousin came and told me about the death, and I rushed in there. And the next morning, the orphanage van came, took my little brothers and sisters out. They went to the orphanage. I was going to be farmed out to my auntie. Family was decimated. And then the doctor came down, and he put his arm on because my father was crying. He said, "Your wife died, your Winnie died," he said, "for the want of a pint of blood, the want of an hospital bed, and the want of an abortion," he said. And he said, "It's criminal that these things are happening these days." And of course my life was decimated. And then 6 months later, I started work underground before I was 14. When I went to work underground, I met I just couldn't believe the solidarity and the miners, you know, they were so flipping good. And I told them, I was listening to the stories because all the old communists down there, they knew what they wanted. They wanted to take control of their own lives. They wanted to change the world. They wanted things to be better for everybody. And they said, once this war is over, we're going to get it. He said, come what may. So I said, well, how are you going to get it? Join the Communist Party, he said. He said, but you can't join. He said, you're too young. Join the Young Communist League. So, join the Young Communist League. So I went home and told my father, what do you bloody join the Young Communist League for, he said. He said, me and your grandfather have set up the branch of the Labour Party, he said. He said, we've got a manifesto, he said, to change the world. Oh, aye, I said, aye. I said, I don't hear many bloody Labour people speaking about changing the world underground, I said. But I said, you're not a communist talking about it. And, well, he said, join the Young Labour Party. I said, no, I'm sticking, and it would very, very rare answer my father back. So I dug my heels in straight. And then I helped lead a strike when I was just before my 15th birthday. The Bevan boys started to come in there. Every 10th conscript was was told you got to work in the colliery. And here they come. I started work underground. My grandfather was 6'2" tall. I had his trousers. I had my uncle's shoes, which was a bloody size too small. And I used to walk up the colliery like this because the crutch was down there because they had to cut the legs off to make it fit me. And I had a soft hat on. And I thought I was a cat's whiskers earlier on. But when I saw these bloody Bevan boys, overalls, steel-toe cap shoes, helmets, gloves, I said, where'd you get all them from? Oh, he said, we've just had 3 months training, he said. And he said, this is the gear they give us. So I went to see the manager straight away. Oh, we had a meeting that night with the Young Communists. You go, Ray, said, and see the manager about it. I said, why are these Bevan boys having all this? I said, and we're young lads, I said, 14 years of age, coming into the bloody colliery, I said, and got nothing. And I said, these are grown men. He said, if you don't bugger off from here, he said, I'll kick your ass. Get down on the ground, start working with your miner. He said, don't come here moaning and groaning to me. And so I went to take it up at the lodge, the Miners' Fed Lodge, and he said, we're too busy with other matters. Ray, he said, listen to you, little problems. And so there was a good communist, Sam Norris. He saw me afterwards outside. Ray, he said, what do you need to do, son? He said, go up to the lamp room. There's the boys that are coming in to work. He said, you get up there early and tell them there's a strike on. And it's unofficial. But he said, so, you know, big as well. And I'm not joking, though. I was so little, I was so little small. And so I was there telling them, strike today, don't get your lamp, we're on strike, all of it. And so the strike was started. So we had a meeting then up on the mountain there, and so we sorted out, we're going to stay out until we win justice for ourselves. All the boys were. So we went playing cowboys and Indians up the mountain then, you know, having the time of our lives. We were still only kids, really. And then after a week, my old man said to me, the manager went, my father said to me, come home, pretending to be, got my black on my face and this, and he said, you have a good day's work, son? Yes, Dad, I said. Oh, he said, that's good. How many drams you filled a day then, son? Oh, I said, 4, I said. So then he grappled my bloody ear and dragged me in, you little whisker, he said. He called me everything. And so that was the end of the strike. And all the other boys had the same treatment. But we won. Every boy after that, Ness Edwards took the case up. I went out to see Ness Edwards, a wonderful member of Parliament who was a conscientious objector. And I'll always look up to him for that even. And he raised it in Parliament, and it was insistent every boy miner was started. You weren't given 3 months training, we were given a month's training, and we were given helmets. And that was all, but it was a step in the right direction. So I learned from those very early days, you know, that if you want something, you've got to fight for it, you know, and you've got to campaign for it. And then I lived through them early years underground. Saw some. It was always near to death. when he was working in the ground, you know, I saw so many awful things happen. The worst was when my miner Fred, he wanted to fill a drum of coal before we put the props up, and I wanted to put the props up. Fill the drum, Ray said, and then we'd put the props up and go home. And down came the bloody roof halfway filling the drum, and he got killed, crushed under this big rock, and I was lucky. Even I was under the fall, I didn't have anything big fall on me. I just had a compass on my shoulder. And I seen another miner slip underneath the drum when he was trying to get the horse hooked up. I seen so many deaths there, but you got used to it, so to speak. And then the miners worked hard. All the miners worked hard, and can I tell you, these miners were so hard. You know, you mention a scab to them, they'd go bloody berserk. You know, and they'd give you a diatribe of what a scab is all about. And because there was a scab working in down there, and he had to work by himself because nobody else would work with him. And he was always asking why you won't work with him. And then I was down the pit bottom in 1945, and the election was on, and I'd been out working for the election, and then they came down and they said, oh, Labour have won this seat, Labour have won that seat, or Labour have lost this seat. And then they came down and said, Labour's got an overall majority, and all the miners give a rousing cheer. And as I said to my miner, I said, what are you cheering about? He said, well, it's our manifesto. He said, we made that bloody manifesto. He said, we forged that manifesto, he said, and the Labour Party had no alternative but to implement that manifesto. And one of them was, tears was coming down his eyes. I said, well, you bloody crying for it if we'd won. Yes, he said, but Ray said, you don't realise, he said, the struggle it's been, he says, to win this fight, he said. He said, your mother died for the want of an hospital bed, he said, but other mums coming along will now have it, he said, because our NI will make bloody sure that we'll have decent hospital services. And so, right through my mining career, so on strikes, even during the war we went on strike with Dad and things like that. And then I was invalided out of the colliery then, after I'd done my 7 years. Called into the army and then I went back to the colliery for short periods at Nangara Colliery, a little bit in Bedworth Colliery, and then like all of us here, we got married and things whilst I'm still doing my trade union work, etc., etc. But always my heart was down with the boys and the ground. And then in 1972 came the miners' strike. It was led by, he was quite a middle of the road, or even a little bit on the right-wing side, who was the miners' leader at that time. I'm trying to think of his name, really. I can't think of his name.
Joe Gormley.
Was it? Joe Gormley. Joe Gormley. And my father took me to the various